Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex
and Joe.
and Joe. I want to get right into it today. For folks, by the way, who aren't aware, July has sort of been Indie RPG Creator Month.
Yep,
And of course,
was it Dan Masters that threw that out?
Correct.
Professor?
Yep. Good old Professor DM.
Yep.
And of course, we've been quietly supporting it here. Although in our world, almost every day is Independent RPG Creator Day. However, one of our favorites, as you know, is Runehammer, old Hank Infernal over at Runehammer Games, and he has been working on for years.
Yes.
This system called Crown and Skull. And Joe, we were very fortunate to be able to engage in some of the early playtests of Crown and Skull, and kind of see its all of its little changes over time.
Right. And I'm still excited about the fact that I got to run it for a bit.
Absolutely.
During those playtests, and that was pretty rad.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too a little bit. But we thought today we would dive right in and talk about Crown and Skull because old Hankerin at Runehammer released the free player's guide.
Yes. Free player's guide 1.9 PDF.
Yep.
Great.
And it is out, and most importantly, you can go get it right now. So
yeah. Alex, where do we go to get it?
Yeah. So you can go and get this document, and you can follow along with the video, with this video this discussion that we're about to have about the 1.9 Player's Guide, Crown and Skull. What an awesome system. And we can give you some of our insights.
I'm following
along the way. If you just simply go to runehammer.online, you can see it right up here in the description right there. Runehammer.online. This website will come up. This is Runehammer's shop, his blog, a little bit about his community and about him as a game creator.
And quick note, it's a great blog. Like, y'all should be reading this. It's a great blog. Lots of great just thoughts, advice, how you do the things kind of stuff throughout the entire blog. You should check it out.
Absolutely. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't say there is some killer merchandise in the shop, including a Shadow Dark adventure, ICRPG adventures, all kinds of cool stuff, game documents,
shirts, full-size beautiful maps,
coffee mugs, stickers, like all the Runehammer merch you can think of. But if you go to runehammer.online, you instantly are going to get hit with this first page where Crown and Skull is front and center. Like, are you here for Crown and Skull? And click the Seven Eyes compass to get the latest. So literally, you hover right over this little guy.
Yep. Do you choose the crown or the skull? I mean, you click either side, it's going to take you to this page. But do you choose the crown or the skull? I clicked the crown. I'm just saying.
And so I think we also need to point out that Crown and Skull isn't just this free player's guide. Like, it's going to be like a massive 400-page RPG tome.
The free player's guide is roughly the first 70 pages with some tiny compacted adjustments, according to Hank. It's basically the first 70 pages of the book, more or less.
Yep.
It's enough that you can just look at the thing, just read it, soak it in, and you can start playing some stuff with it.
Yep.
Full players making or player character creation. There we go. Use your words, Joe.
And so if you navigate here, you click on the Crown and the Skull, you scroll here to the bottom. What is Crown and Skull? There's a little bit of a blurb about it. We're going to talk about it. But then here is the download for the free player's guide 1.9. It just released on Friday, and you can get it right now.
And also, if you scroll back up a little bit there, Alex, if you would be so kind. The print book is coming soon, as it shows right there, and you can pop in your email address to be notified when pre-order for the mighty tome itself is available.
Yep, absolutely. Type in your little email and and click notify.
Yep.
All right.
We are not like paid to say any of this. We just really dig it. So it's all genuine here.
So we have in front of us the 1.9 Player's Guide to Crown and Skull. Here it is. First of all, you're greeted by this awesome piece of artwork, the skull with the crown on it. And
the
then,
seven-eyed skull.
yep, and then
Dun,
this
dun, dun.
the 9-point compass here. But let's dive into it. So Crown and Skull, super awesome, free player's guide. We have it in front of us. Now note, this is all part of a much bigger book. So amazingly,
Yes.
this free player's guide is 74 pages.
Um,
But the final book is going to have additional items. Magic.
mhm.
It's going to have all this GM's guide built right in for you. That's going to be in the
Um,
final release.
and also, the majority of this stuff is all already done. Like, good old Hankering's putting in like literally like the last couple like finishing passes and stuff. Like, it's close. I'm not giving out any dates, of course. Like, we don't
Yeah.
know the dates, but it's close.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
if you've been following along with all Hanks talks about it, you know it's close. You know this thing is like getting ready, getting ready. You can almost hear the drums in the deep.
Yeah, and he's been doing a ton of work. I mean, literally for years to put all this together. Right now, if you've ever done document creation, he's fixing typos and he's nudging this and nudging that, and doing final little fixes. As you can imagine, for a 400-page book, that's going to take some time, but it's coming.
Yep.
Like, it is coming. There's an atlas of the sort of this world that he's built Crown and Skull around, with a hex roll system with tons of cool regions and landmarks and rooms and caverns and just about anything
And
you
you got
want
a
to
map
generate.
included in this. You can see this map of these North Holds. We don't get the whole hex system yet, but the map is in this PDF. So
Yeah,
you
the
do get
map
to
exists.
see the place.
Yeah, and in fact, we'll put it up on the screen. Nope. Yeah.
That way.
Yep. Here's a description about dungeons, and then you get into sort of your bestiary with all the different enemies that you can encounter. All these different enemies populate your game with all sorts of monsters and bad guys, and then this tables and treasures, all in the final version. But that's not what we're focused on today. Today, we're focused just on the free player's guide that familiarizes you with the Crown and Skull game, how you play it, and the basic mechanics. Right out of the gate, you have this awesome forward, and of course, all the credits and all that sort of stuff. We'll skip past here, and we're going to head down. By the way, there's some awesome story text. Hankerin, over the last several years, has really refined his writing in terms of being just sort of a consummate storyteller. These awesome little vignettes really help set the mood for Crown and Skull.
I actually went through, since downloading this free PDF, the free player's guide here. I actually went through and I was picking through and looking for all of the bits of this fiction. And just, that was my first read through. I ignored like the game stuff. I didn't look into the rule stuff. I was going through and I was reading the fiction because it's great. And it really gives you that mood, that tone, that feeling of Crown and Skull, of the North Holds. So like, it was like, but you don't have to skip around and read all that. You can just go through, because you get snips. Like Alex said, there's snips of it along the way, and it's throughout the book.
Yep.
So it helps with the reading experience. You get some of this, then you get some of the meat and potatoes, but the meat and potatoes are delivered with the same kind of seasoning and deliciousness, and it's a great read too.
Yeah.
Sorry, excitement, rambling.
Nope. All right. So we've got concepts and content. This talks a little bit about sort of some of the methodology behind the book, about the presentation of the world, about character concepts, and this concept of building characters mechanically. It talks all about enemies, dice, all those sorts of things. And then, the content of what constitutes a great tabletop game.
Yeah.
The other fun thing about Crown and Skull is that you have these little vignettes where old Hankerin addresses the reader directly in these little call-outs or these little blurbs. And some of them are super funny.
Yeah. So it's more flavor and fun.
Yep.
Exactly.
Super good. Yeah, or to reinforce, kind of key concepts. So super great in terms of the book design.
Yep.
This talks about the player focus.
Because it is very player focused.
Yes, and how in Crown and Skull, particularly if you're a DM, how Crown and Skull offloads a lot of the work you do onto the player side, not just player-facing roles, but in a lot of other aspects of the game. Most of that is now on the player side, so the DM has a little bit less work to do.
Yep.
So it's super cool. Go through that.
And it is very nice. I do have to say, it is very nice.
It's very nice. Here's a little bit about the world, the Northholds, what the Northholds are all about. A lot of this lore that was developed literally came from Hankerin's own table time across his various groups, and all the events that are sort of happening at the time that players set foot into Crown and Skull. Right.
As Hank said in his live stream when he did the free release, everything in this game has happened from actual play at the table. Like it was built from table play.
Yep. So super good there. So there's a little bit about that. I love this. Good yet has a foothold.
Yes.
Of course it does, because that's where heroes enter. There are 3 main hometowns in Crown and Skull. Gardenborough, the Forest Refuge, Rivergate, the bustling trade city, and Slimshire, the High Plains outpost. These locales are populated with all kinds of cool NPCs. Joe, we've had a hand in developing some of those denizens, right?
Yeah, we've played some of these guys.
Yep.
Ig Goggins, that's my man. That's my man right there.
Ib Goggins is literally the one. Here are some pieces about game flow, about setting the scene. Oh, yeah.
Also, real quick, not only are those 3 locales populated with wonderful, fantastic, and colorful NPCs, they're also populated by your characters, because those are one of your 3 hometowns where your group will be beginning play.
Correct. Yeah, great point, Joe.
Yeah, those are your hometowns.
Yeah, everybody starts in one of those 3 places. Epic.
So you get to know some of these NPCs more than likely right off the bat. Possible some connection or tie-in with them, which is great.
Yep. If you've been DMing for a while, here's maybe you could skip some of this stuff, but here's some blurbs about setting the scene, and then this introduction into phases and rounds, which is a unique key mechanic to Crown and Skull. It's a little bit different probably than what you're used to in terms of going in phases. But as we'll talk about when we get to that section, the phase system, Joe, I think
it's really great.
It challenges players in slightly new ways.
Yes.
And then this idea of transitions and table talk, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But let's dive in to really the most important part from my standpoint is let's get our feet wet here in terms of the mechanics of Crown and Skull.
Right, because we can't teach you how to role play, but we can talk about the dice and the mechanical stuffs.
Yep. So let's talk right out of the gate about making rolls, okay? Yes. And sort of these most common loops in terms of gameplay that you're going to see. The first one is the simple flat roll, and in Crown and Skull, this is a D20 roll under system.
Yep.
So lower is better.
Or below. Yes.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, right, Joe, when we first started playtesting this was a 3d6 system.
Yep. It was still roll below, but
still roll under.
It started on 3-6 sides.
Yes.
3 of those noble cubes.
Yes. And we had a lot of fun with that, and it really sort of held up, except that in terms of game design and in terms of Hankerin's playtesting,
the bell curve.
Yeah, that bell curve on 3d6 really just made the game kind of flat because you kept seeing the same numbers, coming up over and over and over again. And all of that came through playtesting and a year's worth of data collection. And so he changed it from our original playtest from 3d6 to a d20 roll under system. So your basic flat rolls, you may call for some type of simple test or simple check,
Yep. And the flat roll is just that.
Yeah.
At or under your target.
Yeah, exactly.
Plain and simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And note, by the way,
the floor is slick. Roll me a 9 or better to get through it. without slipping and falling or causing a ruckus.
Perfect. And then, there's this little example points out too, right, is that it can also be a contested roll also.
Yes.
Like let's see who can, roll lowest on a D20.
Right? It's limbo on a dice.
Mm-hmm.
How low can you roll?
Yep.
How low can you roll?
Exactly. Now the other cool thing about Crown and Skull is that much of what you can do is dependent on skills. So
yes.
Crown and Skull has a very clear skill-based system, like these skills or abilities that your character can do. And when you have to do those things, you may be required to make a skill roll.
Yep.
And in those instances, you take your skill value, you roll a d20, and you try to hit that number or roll lower than your skill value to succeed.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Skill value, not stats, because Crown and Skull has no stats.
Boom, boom, boom.
Dun, dun, dun.
I feel like we need
no stats, guys.
Yeah, we need the behind the screen music.
Right? Where's a? We have to hire a Foley artist.
Yeah, right. You've got two halves of a coconut. You're banging them together.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So very skill dependent. We're going to dive into those.
And as it shows right there, there are some times if you don't have the skill for it, it is simply not possible to do it without a skill.
Or the DM may assess a penalty on that skill roll.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, to make it even harder to succeed, depending on the moment and the fiction and the circumstances. Awesome.
Exactly.
All right. The next most common roll is what happens when enemies attack. Right?
Defend. Mm-hmm. You got to roll that defense.
Yep. So enemies do not make attack rolls. Mm-hmm. The DM will say, like the serpent lashes out at you. Right? The viper has 3 attack, so roll your defense with a -3 penalty.
Right. So your defense is, say your defense is only a 10. Now you got to roll a 7 or better.
Yeah. 7 or less.
Yeah. 7 or less. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. So called for defense roll. And I'll tell you, that whole concept of adding a penalty to that roll as a DM is super brutal. Like, talk about a great way to really challenge players. And,
oh, yeah.
And, for anybody who comes from a player-facing system, like you kind of know, right? The one thing about that common loop is that, players are constantly rolling dice, which keeps them active and keeps them engaged. So it's super great. Of course, like in traditional games, you get to roll for damage or effect. There's no to hit roll in Crown and Skull.
Oh.
When you attack, you roll damage instantly.
Yep, straight to the meat and potatoes.
Mm-hmm. So this was an epiphany that I think Hankerin reached after we played this little gem called Cairn. In Cairn, there is no attack roll; you just simply roll damage.
Same with Into the Odd, which is, I think, Karen even cites that, a thanks to that system.
Yep, correct.
I have the old floppy cool book of Into the Odd. I love that dungeon cover.
Yep. So, and I think Joe and I at some point we may be trying to get a little thing out about Karen, but in any event, you're going to see that influence here.
Yes.
With this idea of no 2-hit rolls.
And it is really tasty at the table. I mean, it works great. I mean, you've got the text right there, but it is just really that easy. You are attacking this, whatever this enemy is, boom, hit your damage straight out.
Yep.
And then, their armor comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Right.
Wonderful.
So armor can reduce the damage, all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Importantly, the Die of Fate for yes/no rolls makes an appearance here. We have long played with a single D6 as a Die of Fate. That goes
the 50-50.
Yeah, that goes all the way back. I think the first place I ever saw it was a Perilous Wilds. If you haven't,
a great book.
If you haven't seen the Perilous Wilds, really check it out.
Even if you don't play Dungeon World, Perilous Wilds is an amazing resource and wonderful book for any setting you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it talks about like being out in the wilderness and overland travel and different things like that. But it incorporated this Die of Fate. We have long played that if you roll a 1, 2, or 3, it's a no. If you roll a 4, 5, or 6, it's a yes. Now you have to be a little bit maybe careful about how you phrase the questions, right? But
Right.
you have to be consistent that a 1, 2, and 3 is always bad and a 4, 5, 6 is always good.
Well, yes isn't always necessarily good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, in Crown and Skull,
do the
correct.
stone supports of this bridge we're all standing on crumble? Roll 50-50, yes or no.
Yep.
In that instance, the yes is not good.
Yeah.
Because yes, they crumble. Now the bridge is coming down.
Yeah. So
bridge is coming down. Roll me some defense, or take, what is it? Damage, skill attrition, equipment attrition. There we go. We'll get to that. Sorry.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I think what we're highlighting here, right, is you have to be careful how you ask those questions, or at least think about that loop. That depending on how you phrase the question, that 4, 5, or 6 may not be a good thing.
Yep.
Which is a little bit odd limbically. I think probably, Joe, what I would do at my table, right, is I would be very careful about how I phrase the question, or I would do what we do in terms of our ICRPG games, which is a 4, 5, and 6 always favors the players.
Yep. That's what I was going to point out also, that we play it with high is good for players.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then, this other piece about, all other roles, like how long until the boat arrives, how many Houndmasters are there, how tall is the statue, that sort of thing. That's like traditional ICRPG stuff kind of making its way in terms of maybe rolling a timer, or maybe you pick another die, like instead of the common D4, you pick a D6 or D8. How many Houndmasters show up? Roll a D6. Oh man, there are 5 of them.
Right? Exactly. So, God, I would hate 5 Houndmasters. Holy crap.
Right. It would be so
I hate
brutal.
the Houndmasters.
Yep. So just to recap that piece, in terms of the basic mechanics that you're going to see, you're going to see these flat rolls, roll a d20, roll at or below the target, roll under. You're going to see these common skill rolls where you're going to roll at or under your skill value. You're going to roll your defense stat when enemies attack. Whoops. You are going to roll for your damage, but there's no 2-hit or attack roll. You just simply roll your damage, which is good because players like to roll damage against things. Right.
Indeed.
But enemy sort of has soak with this defense stat, this damage reduction piece. The die of fate appears, 1d6, and then all other rolls. That's sort of go to your DM toolbox and answer those questions maybe with a die roll, right? And make it fast, fun, and flexible, and trust your dice. So
always trust them.
Yep, that is awesome, awesome stuff here in Crown and Skull. All right, hey Joe. Now this awesome attrition system, which is unique to Crown and Skull, would you like to talk about that?
Oh yeah, let's definitely talk about that. So as we talked about damage already, players rolling damage, enemies have hit points. Players do not. Players have, like it says here, players have their equipment and their skills. When injured, you cross those items off, or at least on the character sheet, there's a little checkbox you can mark, like this one's off. So basically, like literally what this means is, as it kind of shows right here, when you suffer some type of damage or anything that reduces your physical wellness, as it says, your equipment and your skills begin to drop off. Like you twisted your knee, crap, you can't use your jump skill, or you can't use your running skill because your knee is wrecked in the, whatever fight, or something happens, your equipment gets damaged, or an enemy hits you and your equipment takes damage. Boom, the equipment is no longer usable. And once all of those things are gone, that's kind of when you kick over and, maybe it's time to make a new character. But yeah, like it shows here, we've got multiple types of attrition and how these things are affected in play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the only other piece I would add to that, Joe, is right. So this puts the power a little bit in the hands of the players, so that when you take damage or you're hurt, you get to choose whether you cross off a piece of equipment, or temporarily cross off equipment, or cross off a skill.
Right.
And then
not always, because some of the specific types of attrition might apply.
Well, we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And then, in the basic case, you would do that. And then you role play. So you determine, like, oh, I took that hit, and maybe that's going to go to my shield, and the shield strap broke.
Yep.
Right? Now, my shield isn't destroyed necessarily.
Hmm.
I could get it repaired, but for right
Yep.
now, the strap is broken and I lose any of the benefits that shield provided.
Yeah. Which, man, that's heavy because that feels like your defense went down.
Yep. But notice how that's all sort of, player dependent.
Yeah.
Or, you're you just you're maybe you get hit and you decide like, oh, you know what? Like that went to my climbing skill or whatever. Well, now,
Yeah.
my hands are all torn up or whatever. So now
Right.
I can't use that climbing skill. So I'm going to cross it off temporarily
Right.
until I rest or get healing.
Exactly.
That
Or those horrible moments when your, I don't know, say your healer loses his spell casting ability because some damn rat chewed on his face and just with a mess over the lip, he can't pronounce the words.
right.
God, that was so awful.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
happened. That happened to me. I was rolling randomly. I was probably not the smartest play. Like I just was playing with dice. I was following the dice, and the dice took my spell casting out. So yeah, but narratively in that instance, mouth was chewed up, couldn't pronounce the words properly. But you get to RP some of these events. Like
Yep.
Alex was
So
saying.
let's now so we talked about sort of the basic loop, kind of what
Yes.
you're gonna see, but now what kind of Joe was getting at, right, is let's talk about some of these different types of attrition and
Yeah, because
what
sometimes you don't get a choice of what you suffer.
correct. So Joe, if you want to talk about these different attrition types and what can happen.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, then just like it says, we've got 5 basic types there. The basic attrition, that's your choice, equipment or skill.
Yep.
It's however narratively you feel that whatever caused the attrition, whatever grievance was laying upon you, you get to choose. Did it mess your equipment or did it mess your skill? And crossing them off, it's not lost. You'll never permanently lose a skill. Equipment can be permanently damaged and need to be replaced, but most of the time you can heal up or repair that equipment.
Hmm. However, where I think you see these different types of attrition really hit, right, is with enemies and their abilities.
Yes.
So you're gonna run into enemies, right? If you run into the crabtopus, right, like
Yeah.
that thing may just simply outright destroy your equipment.
Right. Man, depending on what you get hit with, that's probably got both flesh and equipment attrition, depending on the attack.
Right. And
Like
and you
flesh, it has to be a skill, or equipment, it has to be gear.
exactly. And notice that it's also a lot of these are random. So
Yes.
if you got 6 pieces of gear, roll a d6, and
Hmm.
wherever it lands, that thing is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, because a little bit of, I guess, like it says down there, 10 skills and 10 items. That's kind of your health in a way. That's your survivability.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I think that's important to
Hmm.
really highlight here, right? Is that Crown and Skull does not have hit points, right?
Yes.
For players. Let me say that
Yes.
again. Crown and Skull does not have a hit point system. All
No.
your damage and all your ability is all attrition based.
Yep.
And so it really sort of mimics that idea that you're an adventurer, you're out in the world, and as the world
Hmm.
presses in on you and you take damage and you get eroded in a
Yep.
way, you suffer this attrition where
Yes.
your gear gets harmed, you get harmed until eventually, up to 20 items and skills,
Yep.
you're non-functioning.
Yeah, right. You've been beaten down. Everything you have is like your isn't working. All your gear's destroyed. You kick over and die.
Yep,
The world was too much. But
perfect.
yeah, it's things like that. With knowing that this is your survivability, is what you are and what you have. That's when those things like the destroy attrition, where it's one piece of random equipment gone, destroyed, erase it, and one randomly or selected skill is also crossed off. So
Yep,
that destroy attrition is evil.
yeah, yeah,
And brutal attrition, where it's 1d6. So it's more than one thing being shredded up.
yeah. That
Like
that that
those get gnarly.
that really might be the crabtopus. Okay, so
Gosh.
I think hopefully the attrition system and the idea that it's a replacement for hit points, hopefully that's sinking in, like that's landing well with folks. Let's talk a little bit now about how you heal and repair.
And of
So
course, we are going to look more in depth at some of these. I'm quite certain at some later point we're going to have a little how-to or something to check this bad boy out.
we
Maybe
will
a couple.
we will do a playthrough of Crown and Skull.
Maybe a couple.
Mhm.
Yes. Sorry, but how do we heal and repair?
Yeah. So, it's just like you would typically think in a hit point based system, right? If you receive healing, like upon a successful heal, magic, potion, first aid, you can restore one crossed off skill. For damaged equipment, a repair or armor skill, or getting to a location with those services can repair those items. And of course, if you have destroyed gear, you're just going to have to find or buy more.
Yeah, you have to check with the shopkeeper.
Yep. Yeah, or find it in the field, right?
And we'll talk about why destroyed gear is so absolutely awful down the ways in this vid as we'll get to that. It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah. God damn it.
Well, it reminds me a little bit, Joe, right? Of
Viking Death Squad.
Thank you. Yeah. So okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So this reminds me a little bit, right, of Viking Death Squad and this sort of loot churn where your gear's kind of getting destroyed in place of hit points. You kind of see that theme kind of appear again here.
Yeah.
And so players, right, if you're getting gear destroyed, like you're gonna really feel that craving, like, oh my god, I've got to find stuff, or seek out makeshift stuff in the environment to potentially give myself an edge. So I think you're gonna see that as a very common loot. And then this idea, just like in traditional D&D type games, any sort of safety or rest and recovery, you can regain a combined 1d4 of equipment and skills.
Yep, which is nice. That safety is a big important thing, because you really don't get to sleep or rest much if you're in a place where you're in like constant hypervigilant state, because holy crap, what was that noise? What's moving over there in those bushes? And nobody got any good sleep that night.
Yeah,
so that safety is important.
Yep. Well, and then I love this piece, about taking a breather, so sort of rest in the field. If you're coming from index card RPG, you have this idea of taking a recovery action, right? Same thing kind of here when the timer is gone and there's not a wave of enemies and you have one moment between the next wave, you could take a breather. And in that moment, you could regain one equipment or skill, kind of catch your breath and keep on trucking. So,
Indeed.
And then finally, the idea of death. If a hit can't be absorbed by inventory, you take a hit to the heart. Like that's your
Shut
last
to the heart. And I'm not finishing that, so there's no copyright strikes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you might be to blame. And you will die, and this is an important concept because this carried over from our playtest. You will die at the end of the next phase 5 until healed. Now, we haven't talked about phases, but I can tell you if you get knocked down in phase 4, the very next phase 5 is the one where you die. So time becomes critically of the essence.
Yep. Yeah, that's where you're really hoping that you've got a buddy on phase 5 that can do something.
Yep. So
because if not, you're dead.
Yep. So now let's jump to introducing phases.
Yeah.
All right. So phases, again, another unique aspect of Crown and Skull. And really, phases are a collection of story beats or moments inside of a round.
Yes.
Okay, so think of your traditional round. Normally, your traditional round is everybody makes it around the table, right? Yep. Here, the round is when all 5 phases are complete.
Yes.
And note that heroes and enemies go in different phases, which makes timing and moments critically important.
Yep. And it also gives a lot of strategy to players.
Yeah.
Because, going into that, players get to choose when they go. They get to choose their phase.
And once chosen, you're locked in. There is no...
you can't change it in the middle of combat.
Yep, exactly. So
It's kind of that thing, like, in place of, everybody roll initiative, the GM can be like, what phases are you guys going in, to really like solidify that we are starting combat, you
yep.
know, because there is no initiative. There are the phases.
Hmm.
And at the beginning of combat, unless you have something that says otherwise, at the beginning of combat, everybody chooses what phase they're going in. Enemies are already locked into their phases. So, like, say, like the skeleton included in the book, it goes on a phase 3
Yep.
every
Yeah.
round.
Yeah.
And players get to choose where they would like to go. Whether
So
they all want to stack up in phase 1 and bum rush the thing and hope they drop it, or they want to spread out and use some strategy in that.
yeah. Well, right. And so that's where I was headed, Joe, right? So in a traditional loop, right, you might decide if you're a tank or you're a high DPS character, you want to go in phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some of your other people, your thieves or your archers or people who kind of hang back, they might want to go somewhere between 2 and 4. And then, your healers maybe traditionally might want to go in phase 5 because at the end of the battle, then they can kind of survey all the stuff that's happened and
Yeah.
kind of get their healing in and before the next round of phases begins. Now,
Yeah.
note by the way, if the players get to go in multiple phases, the enemies can go in multiple phases, and sometimes if you act more than once, you could go in multiple phases. So
Yeah.
the skeletons might attack in phases 2 and 4, depending.
Right. I think the elite. Oh no, I think the elite is listed in here as only a phase 4. But yeah,
Correct.
potentially monsters could act in phases 2 and 4. I think at most they can act in 3 phases, I
I
believe.
believe that's correct.
But then also they can take up to 3 actions on
Hmm.
that phase, which shit start to get crazy. Like, enemies are terrifying, and this should terrify you. Just
Yeah.
for instance, a rat that acts twice on phase 3.
Hmm.
Every round on phase 3, that rat's doing 2 things, and it might be damaging people. It might be hitting attrition twice on phase 3
Right.
while everybody else is going. So, and I mean, it could be bad. If there are 3 rats, that's now 6 actions all happening on phase 3.
Hmm. It's actually
You
kind
could
of
get wrecked.
it's actually kind of scary to think about that there could be a monster who
Mm-hmm.
acts in 3 phases and also takes 3 actions per phase. That's 9 potential attacks. Or
That was the Crabtopus.
yeah.
When you and Hank went up against the Crabtopus, it was 1-3-5, and it had 3 tactics
Hmm.
on each one of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys almost died. I can't. You guys, that was brilliant. The way you guys handled it, because that thing was brutal.
Yeah. Super
But
good.
yes.
Yeah. I know, we didn't talk about this, but I think now might be a good time to talk about. So in our initial playtest, we had the incomparable Kelsey Dion. She was playing Morella, sort of this female champion paladin. She was our tank. She's decked out in armor. I'll try to put the image up on the screen. But she's decked out this holy beacon and like paragon of virtue, right? Kind of leading our party.
Haunted by visions of demons.
Yes, yeah, she was a demon slayer, right? Super awesome. Then we had old Hankerin. He was playing Glorfin, this giant barbarian with this massive weapon. I think it was an axe, iron
Yeah,
iron
Iron Bite.
bite, and
Yep.
this named weapon of ages. An iron
Stolen magic belt.
Yeah, an iron bite did a truck ton of damage. So those two in particular were almost always phases 1 and 2.
Yep.
Between Morella's tanking, Kelsey's tanking, and old Hankerin's DPS with his barbarian berserker, Glorfin and Iron Bite, they were 1 and 2.
Yep.
I was playing a bit more of a roguish character, Arson
Yep.
Squiles. He has an animal companion
Mm-hmm.
and Lady Thistledown, who
Yep. Was brilliant.
he's a falconer, and he would send Lady Thistledown as his ranged attack. So
Okay.
I didn't want to be up front. I didn't want to go in phases 1 and 2. I was a 3 or 4 guy and would send
Mhm.
the bird out to basically do my ranged attacks.
Yeah, I just want to highlight real quick how badass that is, that the ranged fighter decides, nope, my ranged attack, it's not a bow. I'm a falconer. My bird is my ranged attack. And it was awesome.
Yeah, There's some, if you ever played Borderlands, that's some Mordecai action right there.
Yes.
Send your bird out to do all your dirty work, which is totally possible in this game, by the way, to build the character that you want, which we'll talk about. But then in phase 5, then we had the incomparable Xander, playing Father Desmond, priest of the light, and also Drunken Brawler.
And Drunken Brawler.
But Father Desmond was always there to make a prayer and to channel healing to kind of solve some of this attrition that we had taken during the round. So super cool. So that's the setup. Hopefully that example kind of helps lock in this concept of phases for you and think about how it all plays out. And then at the end of the 5 phases, they repeat again.
Right. That's your round.
And that's your
round. Like the basic breakdown, or we've been talking about it, the loop in this is, as the game master, all right, phase 1. Nobody goes on phase 1. Okay, phase 2. And then Glorfin and oh my gosh, I forgot the names already. I ran those games. But then Hank and Kelsey go phase 2. Phase 3, I've got enemies. Boom, they go phase 4. So you just kind of get used to calling it out. Phase 4, Alex runs. Phase 5, whoop, I got some skeletons fighting again. And then, Xander with his healing. That's the end of round 1. All right, who acts phase 1? Spins right back around to the top. And it just, it sounds a little weird, but I promise you, like, you just call it and run right through and it goes quick.
Yeah, it absolutely is quick.
And before you know it, you're like, why are we almost dead?
Right. And I would say, the players who have engaged in this phase system, all the other folks on the Runehammer community who have sort of playtested this really talk about how awesome this sort of phase system is and how much it sort of opens up combat and challenges players. So it's super good. All right.
Yes.
So what can you do when it's your turn? Like when your phase comes up and you get to act, you have these 3 options. Traditionally you get to move. It's about 6 inches of table space. In traditional games, that's like, what, about like 30 feet, something like that. If, if 1 inch equals 5 feet, right? That sort of thing.
Yep.
You can perform it. You can also perform an action. So make an attack, use a skill, cast a spell, perform 1 discrete action. If you perform an action, it takes your entire phase.
Yep.
Okay. And then you can hurry. If you need to move and do something in 1 turn, right? If you want to move and act in 1 phase, your defenses are opened up. So all enemies in the scene gain a +5 attack against you for that 1 round.
All right. And if we remember from when we talked about our rolls, that basic loop, roll me a defense. The enemy is an attack 3, but because you hurried, it's now an attack 8 at this moment. So roll a penalty -8 because you're hurried.
Brutal. Super brutal.
Yeah. If your defense is only a 10, you need a 1 or 2 or you are getting hit.
Yep.
Don't be hasty.
Yep. The one good piece of maybe good news for heroes is that if you share a phase with monsters, then the heroes always go first in that phase. So that's a piece. Maybe you can kill the thing before its attack goes off.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Joe. I think we've covered phases. Also, a very unique piece of Crown and Skull. All right.
Ah, yes. Hero points and why gear being destroyed is so painful.
Yeah, Joe, do you want to touch on it? And here I'll put this nice bold piece right in the middle.
Right? There you go. Hero points can only be spent to upgrade a character when resting in a safe place with required facilities or services. But also, more importantly than that, when you create a character, you start with hero points. You spend those points on your skills, to bump up your skills. You spend those points on your gear. You spend those points on your gear. You're not spending currency. You use your hero points. You can fully customize your gear as part of your character creation process, as part of your upgrade process. So when that gear is destroyed, when you get that destroy attrition, it really stings because you just lost hero points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your invested points. And I think just to back up
Yes.
and kind of make this clear,
Oh
hero
yeah. Sorry.
points, no, you're fine. Hero points in Crown and Skull are a universal currency. And not
Yes.
only do they help you build your character at the start, they are also awarded by the DM during moments of play. They're also awarded at the end of each session. Hero points kind of become, what you're seeking all the time for improvement
Yes.
or repairs or rest or safety. You absolutely want them, and they replace sort of this idea of like getting heaps of treasure. Like hero
Yeah.
points really are sort of the be all and end all in Crown and
Yeah,
Skull.
it's kind of an amalgamation of experience points and treasure
Correct.
in a sense. That doesn't
Perfect.
mean you can't find awesome gear already pre-made out there somewhere. Some awesome ancient magic sword, totally can. But you can also build one.
Absolutely. Okay.
Just saying, you can put your points into it. You can upgrade your character.
Yep.
All with these hero points.
Exactly. But you can't spend them in the field, which is what that bold piece is. You have to be in a place of safety.
Yes.
You got to make it back to town, that sort of thing.
Yeah, sorry. I got excited and jumped all over the place. Alex anchored that conversation right back where it needed to be.
Nope, you're fine. and then note just what Joe was getting at. So upgrading or creating new armor may require a forge anvil or capable blacksmith. You would spend them there. Here's the call out to my falconer from our early playtest. Improving a falconry skill requires a meeting with a local expert. Right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
A local expert like Arson.
Yep, exactly. Upgrading a mage, your magic skill, like you might have to find a tablet or a tome or a scroll, or you might actually have to seek out, a more accomplished wizard to help you sort of level up. And hopefully by now you're seeing that really is sort of, in terms of like milestone moments or leveling up, that hero points really are your vector or your avenue to engage in character improvement throughout the course of Crown and Skull.
Yes.
Super cool.
And why it's so absolutely painful when gear is destroyed.
Okay. Interestingly, there's this note about extremes, right? So I love the fact that front and center is this idea of negotiation in a game. In ICRPG terms, we would call this sort of the devil's bargain, right? That sort of thing. Like, hey, DM, like, could I...
Right. This is what I kind of want to do.
Exactly.
Is this possible? Can we make this work somehow?
Exactly. So this calls it out right now. If you're in a terrible situation, when the chips are down, when you don't have any other options, you can negotiate with the DM. And Crown and Skull explicitly, not implicitly, explicitly invite you to do this right here on page, I think, 19 or so. Critical success and failure. We haven't talked about it, but since this is a D20 roll under system, rolling low is always a critical, or is always good. A natural 1 is always a critical success, and a 20 is always a critical failure. That always messes with my limbic system. I got to tell you, I'm not always a huge fan of roll under systems, but having played this, it just works, right? Yeah. It's not a huge shift. A 1 is a critical success.
Yeah. If it's down, thumbs up.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And then we talked about this idea of hero coins. So you can get a hero coin, not confused with hero points, but a hero coin is also an expendable, but they can be expended in the moment. Right? So you can expend a hero coin to reroll any roll entirely, or maximize the damage or output of an attack or effect, just like an index card RPG.
Yep, and can be freely given between players.
Yep. So
each player can only have 1 coin at a time. So if you've got yours, you can either use it for yourself, you can let one of your other buddies use it, but it's not like you give it to them to like, oh, I'm going to hold it now.
Right.
Like you give it to them, they use it now. Like there it is. We need this. We need to attack, or we need this attack to be huge. Reading. We're out of options. Here, take my coin.
Right. So we retain that awesome moment when you're just like, oh my god, dude, like we need you to succeed. Here, take my hero coin.
Yes, take my coin.
Right. And we retain that awesome piece in Crown and Skull. We love it. Okay. So this also talks about metagaming, right? The good kind of metagaming means, players use the knowledge of their items and mechanics to maximize their chances. The bad kind of metagaming is sort of like cheesing, right? Hard to believe or flimsy methods to make things easy, or sort of like kind of cheat the game, right? Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. So, like, if you're just like, hey, like in this example, like, I want my character to be padded with 20 ham sandwiches so that, so that I, have tons of attrition. Like, that's super cheesy and thin and lame and flimsy. Like, don't do that.
Right.
Right.
Like, that is so cheesy. Like, I mean, I thought that was going to be funny. As soon as I started saying it, it was less funny. It was something about ham and cheese sandwiches.
Yeah. Or even in this little example,
not even
like,
that cheesy.
My inventory is just biscuits. I'm just going to cross off a biscuit. Like, yeah, don't do that. Okay.
Cool. It's a shame your inventory is biscuit. I guess you can't carry any of this treasure that's sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. All those crumbs are stuck in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Biscuits is don't be cruddy.
Yep.
Don't have 20 biscuits.
Now, let's talk about, so we've talked about, that's all base mechanics, right? So, and the things that make Crown and Skull unique, we've talked about the types of roles, we've talked about when you act, the phase system, and the types of actions that you can do, and we've talked about this idea of attrition and hit points and death, and all tied into inventory, like all that stuff works together. And then we've talked about recovery and hero points and hero coins, like all that sort of stuff. Those are all the base mechanics. You now have pretty much, other than a character, everything you need to play.
Oh, yeah.
But now, let's talk about character creation. And even from, I think, our early playtests, and I'm so glad that this continued in the game and made its way in, is that there are really two methods, two mechanisms, two avenues to create a character in Crown and Skull. The first one is if you just want to get right into the action, like, almost even like, hey, I wish we had a pre-gen. Like, we want to get right into the action. There's a template and prompt that'll get you right into the game. And there are a bunch of these included in the game. We'll go over them here in a second.
Yep.
And
playing in minutes.
Yep. But you can also custom build a character. And that is, you start out with a pool of hero points and you spin them down as you select options to build your character. Let's dive in.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, and it's old Hanker and Ferndale. Yeah. It's a tough world out there. Not everything we experience makes us better. Me, I spend every point I can get on resist. All right. Here we go. We talked about it already. Choose your town. Here's Garden Burrow. And here in particular, here are some cool NPCs that you may already know or know of, who might even be helpful to your characters. So they're included already. Here's your hometown of Rivergate. Lady Wallcrest. Love her. And some really cool locations and things that can happen in Rivergate. And then Slimshire, this remote town. And again, like Dunsel and the Kid, the Bespoke, the oldest tavern, the Eye in the Well. Like all of these really cool locations and NPCs and places that you can visit to kind of ground you or connect you and anchor you to the world right out the gate.
And then the templates. So here are all the different kinds. Soldiers, and then all the abilities. We haven't talked about flaws yet and how they impact the game, but we'll get there when we get to building characters from scratch. Talking about these templates, we've got the soldier, which is awesome. That's you're the specialist in weapons and armor. You've got this adventurer where you're a nomad, a hunter, a road walker, that sort of thing. Maybe even a treasure seeker or an archaeologist type. Oh yes, seeking treasure and truth, fortune and glory. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, the sage, right? So you're a researcher, you like books, the arcane, that sort of thing.
Yep. Your spellcaster come out of right there.
Mm-hmm. A smith, like you repair things, you're a worker of materials and tools, that sort of thing. A
Right.
cleric, obviously, so Father Desmond, right?
Mm-hmm.
The traditional sort of healer, and
Right. Well, I was gonna say, funny enough, both of those, the smith and the cleric, are essentially healers for Crown and Skull.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Repair that damaged equipment, get those skills back up and working.
great point, Joe. Like these two characters really are sort of your avenue,
Yeah.
for healing and recovery. Yep, epic.
Yep. If you're that type of support player, those are your characters.
Mm-hmm. I love the hoodlum, dubious character, your shadow dweller, right? So this is your typical like thief or rogue type.
Yep.
Yep, your archetype.
Oh, yeah, and those are your basic templates. Like, I
Yep.
mean, those will get you playing in minutes. As you see, most of them they give you your skills already. They tell you kind of what your skills are. They give you a flaw, your core ability, and they tell you how much you've got left to choose. Like cleric, for instance, 5 points of basic equipment and armaments, and any 3 basic spells. And the hoodlum, 9 points of equipment. So like it gets you all set up. Your skills, everything are set. You go get your equipment. You slap a name on them, make some of the rolls on the prompts, and you're ready to play like
Mm-hmm.
in minutes.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah, the templates
Perfect.
are great.
Yeah. And note, by the way, these skills, right? So just like we were talking about roll under. So you start out, if you're a hoodlum and you have a 9 in stealth, right? That
Mm-hmm.
means you need to roll 9 or under in order to go stealth. 10 or under to pick locks, that sort of thing.
All right. And these are your beginning characters. These are like, starter templates. Think, like your level 1 character.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're not like rolling, oh, I succeed on an 18.
Right. But if you think about it, right? So if your lockpick skill is 10 or below, that's a 50-50 chance on a
Yeah.
D20. That's
Yeah.
you're
Good to go.
you're gonna succeed. 50%
Mm-hmm.
of the time it's gonna feel just right, until you level up and get some hero points to kind of boost your
Right.
character. Yep.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe some of that equipment you go down and spend maybe lockpicks, bump your skill up.
Mm-hmm. Um, Even if you're doing the templates or you're
Mhm.
building from scratch, this table exists in terms of a prompt to kind of give you some more background to kind of flesh out your character a little bit. So I am a, and then you kind of roll on this table. You
Right.
could be elf, an athlete, a dwarf, different types of humans, proud feet, all those sorts of things, or you could even be frogkin.
Right.
Which is sort of
Ribbit.
awesome. My lizard man tendencies really loves the idea of being a frogkin.
Right.
Um, Another character prompt is what are you equipped with?
Right. Oh,
So,
that's the fun thing with these. I am a blank with a blank.
mm-hmm.
You could run through this whole prompt and get a character.
And super fun options here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, even all the way up to like flintlock guns and kit, super awesome.
Right.
And then I love this whole,
Yes.
why did you start adventuring? It all started when, and then some of these choices are great. Like I left a cult, or I joined a cult, right?
Right.
You know, um, all those sorts of things. Like I was just going fishing.
Right.
Now,
I was just looking for a better spot to fish.
yeah, right, exactly, that sort of thing. The wolves appeared, right? So that all that sort of stuff, really cool. And
Yep.
then this whole idea, the piece that I love, instead of like hundreds of pages of backstory, like what is your current status, but then what are you seeking?
Yep. It
What
all started when and now.
and now, right? But now, right? I'm looking to make a mess of things, or
Right.
I'm driven mad by nightmares, and now I just need to take action. That's what I'm out seeking my fortune.
Oh yeah.
All those sorts of things. I'm here to lead my allies to glory. Whatever that means. So super
Right.
cool prompts to kind of inform you and the DM potentially in terms of throwing
Yeah.
some cool things at you. Like, what are you seeking?
Right. Just roll a couple D20 and holy crap, you're ready to go.
Yeah, really cool
Backstory's
options.
ready. You kind of know where you're aiming just from those prompts.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, they're a lot of fun.
Yep. So, and if you did all those previous steps, chose a template, rolled on those tables, you're off and running.
Yeah, you're already playing.
Yep. All right. But I'm glad that this continued to stay the same way from our earlier playtest over a year ago. Start with 50 hero points and build your character from there. Yep. So usually in my journal, right, like on the right side of the page, I would have my character, and then on the left side, I would have my scratch pad, my tally sheet.
I think that notebook's downstairs. I was gonna say I could show you what they look like.
Yeah, for all the options. Well, you know what? Maybe I'll take a screenshot and we'll put it up right.
I can't show that one up because I think it wouldn't make sense now because the character I built was way back.
Yeah, well, listen, don't scrutinize it. We're just showing you typically what that setup looks like in terms of the process. But 50 hero points, one of the first things you do, and it was so great in terms of like kind of coming up with these. Everybody starts with a flaw. The cool thing about flaws is they give you more hero points. So if you take a flaw that sort of informs your roleplay and drives roleplay, they do give you extra character points. Arson Squires, my falconer, he was super greedy. And at one point, literally, because there was a mountain of gold, he literally wandered off from the party.
Yep. Left them to their fate. He was like, go for the gold.
Right.
That was a cool moment too.
Yeah, and also a terrifying one as a player when you have to sort of give in to your flaw. But it makes it super fun. In terms of all of Hankeron's playtesting, every table who has engaged in this system has really loved these flaws and how they inform play.
Yep.
We'll go over those in a second. Everyone has a core ability, but not everyone. You could actually make
you can go
without one, but in general, your next step would be choosing a core ability. 15 points for its acquisition.
And they're worth the 15 points.
Yes. And this was a piece, in terms of the early design that I really sort of insisted on. I was like, like what sort of defines you as a character? Like, what is the core thing that makes you sort of unique from other players? And then you have that idea where you have overlap or not overlap, but you have sort of distinguishing pieces with other characters. So this player is really good at one thing, but you're really good at this other thing. And then you have somebody else who's really good at other thing. And then they all sort of bolster each other with their combined differences.
With our powers combined.
Yeah, you love that differentiation. The core ability is the way to sort of achieve that. Like, what am I really good at? It's the closest thing that Crown and Skull comes to having a class, really.
Yeah.
That sort of defines you. And then you choose skills. So remember, Crown and Skull is a skill-based system. You don't have any stats. The skills are going to be the majority of the rolls you'll be making. So, skills are your friend. You want cool skills. That would be the next step to sort of define your character.
Yep. Max 10 skills. That's all you get.
And then the part that I love, all this buying and customizing. So your equipment, you would buy or customize equipment. It was super cool. Like, I think Arson, I created this sword on a chain, like, so kind of like Ninja Scroll style. I could yank it back, like that kind of stuff. And I think it had a flaw, so it was also like stolen and high value, so somebody else was seeking it, which is great.
Yep.
But
I had a gaudy spell book.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, super garish.
Garish, I think it was, Yep.
You could buy and customize or scratch build your spells. So there is a list of standard spells, but you could modify those to suit your needs, or you could scratch build your spell to suit your character concept. Like, what does that look like?
Ooh, I also combined both of those steps because one of the custom pieces of gear I had was the magic shield ring that bound to the ring, but could cast a shield spell.
Yeah. So right. So that's a great
into a ring.
great point
And
too.
I made that right off the bat
That's
because
a
I
great.
spent those. I still had that limit of points, but I spent those points on it.
Yep. That's a great point, Joe. That those two could overlap. Like you could build a magic item
Mhm.
or an item
Yeah,
that holds spells or whatever.
you have to pay the points,
If you pay
and
the
then
points, you can create your
Mhm.
vision.
Yep. And then I just want to go back to or destroy attrition. Those moments, and now you might realize where the terror comes in of like destroyed, gone for good equipment.
Uh huh.
You build this magic ring, right? Say you build a magic ring and it costs you like 15 points or something out of the 50 you start with. Say you took your double flaws, so you built with 60. That's still 15 points for that ring, and destroy attrition. It's gone.
It,
Those 15 points are gone.
oh, it's terrifying. And
Yeah, that's the terror, man. Oh
well,
man.
yeah,
But you make some cool gear.
if you spent 15 points on a really cool piece of custom gear starting out, maybe even a magic piece of gear, like that's 30% of your entire build was that of your points spent was on that item, and depending on the enemy you face, it could be gone in an instant.
Oh yeah, the terror, folks, the terror.
Super terrifying.
But it's so awesome. The building, the customizing, off the charts.
In my
Somebody might recognize from older games. I know Hero System has been kind of a starting point or whatever, a original inspiration for what we see here.
Yeah,
but these point builds.
Hankerin has been very vocal about the fact that this has been this is a system based on his early influences with HeroQuest, and how that sort of played out going forward. But in my case, I spent a ton of my points on an animal companion. In my case, it was a falcon for Arson, Lady Thistledown, and she was awesome. Like she did a ton of damage when she would swoop in, and then she got killed.
Oh God, I felt so bad. I mean, we were just trusting the dice, and the dice. It was that damn crabtopus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, destroyed my familiar, my companion that I had spent all these points in. I'd even upgraded her too.
Yeah,
over time, and then lost. My companion or my scratch built. She was like equipment in a way. Lost my custom thing that made me cool. Right.
That was heart wrenching. I mean, I know it was game mastering and everything. I wasn't in the moment. I was the crabtopus, and I enjoyed the tasty snack. But holy crap, it was like not Lady Thistledown, because I had seen all of the awesome stuff, that she had done throughout. I mean, yeah, all the way back to when you were stuck with the greeted pile of gold and must get all of it. Lady Thistledown was out doing her badassness.
Yep. Now note, by the way this is listed, it says step 7, acquire and customize a companion. You may not have a companion, or even you may not have a character with spells. So step 6 and 7 may not apply to you, depending on your vision. Or like Arson, you may, skip over spells and jump straight to companion. Like, I don't have a ton of extra custom gear. I just have this one cool pet.
Right. Right, exactly.
So don't feel compelled like, oh, step 7, acquire a companion. Every character has a companion. No. If that step doesn't apply to your vision, like, don't spend your points there. Right?
Right. If you want to be a soldier and you've got a horse because you wanted to be a mounted soldier, lance and everything, you get your mount right here.
Yep. You can build
Go get yourself that big draft war horse.
Yep.
Heck yeah. I mean, it's open. It's open. You can do it if you would like.
Yeah. Where's our coconut horse sound?
Yeah. I mean, hell, yeah, exactly. If you want to have a companion that is another human that carries stuff for you and follows you around, if you want an NPC, you can make him, and he can have come, Patsy. You can do that. You can
yeah.
Brave Sir Robin.
Yeah.
I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah.
We digress, but no, it's all possible. All possible.
And then step 8, choose your lineage. There are 5 lineages to choose from. That's basically your race.
Yep.
That sort of thing that would add a bit of flavor for your place in the world. And then finish. Do you have leftover points? It would be crazy if you did, but you might have 2 or 3 that you might want to bank and save for down the road for future upgrades or future purchases.
Yes. And still beware the wraith.
Yep. So let's talk about flaws. What are the flaws? Taking a flaw earns you 5 points. You can only have 5 flaws over the course of, or 5. You can only have 4 flaws over the course of your character's lifetime.
And previously in character creation, you can only start with 2.
Yep, correct.
I did mention.
But here are the flaws. You're either addict or ascetic. You're ancient. I think, Joe, you made a mage who was like super ancient or frail.
Oh no, I made him like super sickly.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that. A bad reputation, crazy, disorganized.
Right.
Oh god, I had the disorganized character. Hanker and I went down into that. I think we both had like sort of like mages, and we went down into like this tomb, and we were trying to escape, and he was dying, and I had the healing potion.
You had the healing potion,
but I was disorganized, and I rolled, and I didn't get I rolled over 9 and couldn't find it, and the Hankeron's character died.
Yeah.
So that happened.
Maybe an epic story beat.
Yeah.
Like epic moments that you get just picking these things. They are fantastic.
So disorganized really impacted our game. Drunkard, that was Xander's character, Father Desmond.
Yep.
You have a grudge, you're greedy, arson, impetuous, just a kid. That's a great one.
Yep.
Paranoid, phobia, pursued. Yeah, there you go.
Right?
Sickly.
Sickly. It doesn't fit now, but the previous iteration, I had sickly twice. I spent 2 flaws. I was double sickly with my mage.
Yeah, right. But
bad lungs from growing up in a brick factory.
Yep, but now I love it, right? So now your survival and resist skills can't ever be over 9.
Yeah, and that's fantastic for how this works. It fits.
Yeah, it's perfect.
I think Kelsey would have been the paranoid because she was plagued by visions of demons. Like her whole devout thing, there wasn't actually like a god or anyone speaking to her. It was like all this delusional thing in her own head of fighting demons and seeing demons.
Yeah.
She just also happened to be like totally righteous and totally actually killing demons and fighting bad guys.
Yeah, but everywhere we looked, everything was as a result of demonic activity because she was paranoid. So
she saw them everywhere. It was awesome.
So really great and really awesome in terms of informing fun roleplay.
Yep. Exactly.
The core abilities, remember, they cost 15 of your hero points. That's a third of your character build if you choose to take one of these. So battle masters, brutal fighters, druids, empaths, going unnoticed for your thief type builds, mountaineers. You're a paragon of faith in terms of like clerics, or even maybe even some type of like weird kind of stoic character who's taken sort of a vow.
Yep.
Right, monks, that sort of thing. Protectors, spell singers, right? Uncanny shots, right? If you're a range fighter, veteran commanders for that charisma type deal.
And again, like you don't have to choose one of these, but they're totally open, viable options, and they do give you some really cool stuff that you might not be able to get or learn otherwise.
Yep, wizard savant, like you're really awesome in terms of magic. Really great stuff.
Yeah.
Here are all the skills. So remember, in addition to a core ability, your skills really define who you are. Choosing skills, by the way, that's sort of like hit points, right? Like these are the things that potentially, your abilities that you have that keep you alive, but also they're cool things you can do.
And as it shows right there, your buy cost 1 to 1.
Yep.
1 point for 1 point. You have to have a minimum value of 3. So you're spending at least 3 points to get a skill, but you get it at 3.
Yep, exactly.
And every point after upgrading, the same thing, 1 to 1.
Exactly.
But remember, like, you got to find somebody that probably knows how to do this. Like, if you're going to like upgrade like your brawling, You're not gonna like, say you're a 15. I don't know, that'd be a lot. Say you're a 15. You're not gonna go learn anything from brawling a trainer who's got like 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought. Like, you got to some point. I figure you got to find trainers.
Yep. And note, by
Or
the
be
way,
in safety of some sort.
yep,
For upgrades.
no skill can ever exceed 18. So there is always a possibility of failure on a 19 or a 20, no matter what. But the skill list: animal training, armor, brawling, breakfall, climbing, courtier, disguise, evade, faith, forage, gambling, hunting, investigating, jumping, knowledge, languages, linguist, lockpicking, magic. And they go on. Like in the second page, muscle, oratory, pickpocket, taking a crazy profession that gives you an advantage. That repairing skill, super big. Resist is a big one.
Spell research.
Yep, spell research, like all that kind of stuff. Like,
dude, the spell research, you can get hero points. Like you're researching spells, you can earn hero points to only use on purchasing spells. But how dope of a skill is that?
Yeah, like, exactly. Yep.
Reward you for studying in a library.
And I do want to point out, this magic ability used to contain infernal unstable magic's resistance to spells. Also used for wild magic and anti-magic. Like that could become a very important skill. If you have a mage.
Oh yeah, you probably really want that if you got a mage.
Yep. So really awesome list of skills. They really are important. Note Hankering's note here about the value of evade, muscle, and resist skills. They're super fundamental sometimes in terms of the normal loop of play.
Yep.
So take heed there. Okay.
And also, I'm pretty sure probably a mention of it. If you see if you want a skill or have that thought of a skill that's not there, add it.
Yeah, work with your DM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Or even,
like just add it.
Yeah, or like that profession one captures a lot, right? In terms of like what you might be good at, so
right, profession sailor, profession merchant, profession, fill in the blank.
Exactly. Basic equipment list. Note that you can buy basic equipment in terms of like your points. The backpack is interesting, right? Because it expands your inventory by 2. It costs 6 points, but it potentially makes you kind of hardier in a weird way.
Right? Carry 2 additional items. Yep. Indeed.
But all the basic stuff you would expect in terms of like beginning gear, your 50-foot length of rope, that sort of thing, your bear trap, flint and steel, lockpicks, all that sort of stuff you can buy just out of the gate.
Right. And these are the same tables you would use whether you made started with a template. Because remember, all the templates told you, you've got X amount of points for gear. These are the thing, and these are the point costs.
Yeah, and note crazily, if you ever saved up enough, if you saved up 300 points, you could buy a castle or a fortress.
Right? Because also those town trips, you're in town safely. You got to go, dang, I need a new shield and I need a new thing. Cool, here's your points. Go spend your hero points in town. Because remember, it's kind of like a gap bridge of experience points and currency.
Exactly.
Those heroes points.
Super cool there. Here are basic armaments, so remember to save enough points to get yourself a sword. Like if that's your character concept, you're going to need at least 2 of your points to get a sword.
Right? Sword, maybe some leather armor.
Yep, exactly. That sort of stuff. All the basic equipment you would expect. Here's the armor chart. And, everybody...
All characters, base 6 defense for clothing.
Yeah. So you'd be constantly rolling under 6 or lower to try to avoid damage.
Right. So get some armor if you want to, if you're expecting to roll defense, improve your odds of survival. Invest in leather.
But notice those point costs. And you can see now 50 points doesn't go a long way. But remember, you're a level 1 character.
Yep.
But the costs are here in terms of upgrades too. So you're just like, oh, you know what? I want to upgrade from leather to scale, right? Because I need that improvement. You can expend those points later. Cool.
Yep. Indeed.
Okay.
and more directly into defense itself.
Yep.
Where it does again, reiterate. It was a note on the previous page, but it does reiterate. You have your base defense of 6. That's just your close. Additional armor values make it bigger. Again, you have a max 18, and if you've got damage or destroyed armor, your value drops because you don't get benefit from it anymore, which goes right back into that attrition loop on where that healing comes in. Of it's good to have an armorer, or you need to repair your stuff back in town.
Right.
Which leads right into that, having backup armor.
Exactly. So in terms of backup armor and that defense slot, right? Note that you can have you can carry 2 helmets. You can carry 2 helmets, and you can cross off one like, oh yeah, it hit my helmet strapped to my back, right? You can cross that off as far as attrition, but it doesn't contribute to your defense score.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I got 2 helmets that both give +1, I only get 1 +1 because I cannot wear 2 helmets.
Yep, to your defense.
Like, I'm not an Etten over here. 2 helmets like benefits me only one at a time.
Yep, but back to the armor types, you can have 2 types of scale armor. Like you could take scale armor twice, but you've got a scale helmet and a scale chest plate.
Right. And scale legs and scale chest plate.
Right.
Exactly.
You could add scale greaves. You could add scale bracers. At some point, and then at that point, you're kind of decked out.
Yep. And remember, you max out at 18.
Yep.
So however you see putting those points together, 18, anything beyond that does not do anything except to make you look cool.
Yep. Scale gauntlets. Yep. That kind of stuff. Back to damage destroyed. You have to cross them off as attrition.
Yep.
The armor skill, all heavy armor fighters worth their weight are trained in the repair of armor, right? You would want that to make repairs potentially. And again, you're also confined by space. Up to 20 slots.
No, up to 10. You've got 10 slots for skills and 10 slots for gear.
Yeah, right, exactly. 20 total. Yes.
20 total between the two.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, with a backpack, 12 slots for gear.
Perfect.
You get those extra spaces get tasty.
Yep, and then hankerings, I carry 3 shields most days. Custom equipment, like we alluded to, you can absolutely buy different types of gear and then create different types of gear. Note that a traditional D6 weapon is going to cost you 1 point, or item is going to cost you 1 point.
Right. And it gives you kind of like the rough equivalents. Like at 1 point gear, that's like a dagger. That's not like, oh, I've got a 1 point sword. No, you've got a dagger.
Yep.
It's a very small sword. At that size, we call them daggers.
Yep. Or a +1 armor. Like a cloak or boots, or even like simple leather stuff maybe.
Right. Yeah, it gives you examples so you kind of know what you're expecting for that cost.
2 point gear, common sword, hatchet. That's what. Oh yeah, and the leather armor scraps there. That sort of stuff. 3 point gear, your battle axe, your great sword, warhammer, that your chainmail, that kind of stuff, and then you get to 5 point gear.
Yeah, the big stuff.
Yep.
Or your muskets.
Yep. Or plate armor, that kind of stuff. Yep.
Heck yeah.
Super cool.
And now, mind you, if you wanted to do a hybrid thing, if you wanted to go template, and you rolled your prompts, you've got this great looking character, and it says you've got 12 points to spend on gear, you can jump into custom, because the points is points. You still got to spend them either way.
Yep. Now note, even after you buy that base gear, with 3 additional points after you purchase the base item, you could add effects to it.
Oh yeah.
You could make it deadly and sort of double its damage.
Right.
You could make it balanced and ignore a target defense to attack. So it kind of turns it into like a +1, right? You could make it a lucky weapon, or a chained weapon, or lightweight, or reinforced armor, or like this bleed one is brutal.
God, yeah.
Right, to add that to a blade or something, like that's crazy. Or even armor, right? Like if you're like punching or something crazy, you could add that bleed tag to your gear. Like it's awesome.
I've got these gauntlets that just happen to have some spiked protrusions on the knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
And they inflict bleed when I use them in combat.
Yep. But
Totally
note,
could.
as all part of this character creation and this customization creation, your gear could also have flaws or limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So just how like a flaw would gain you 5 points at character creation, a gear limitation would gain you 3 points that you could use.
Like those gauntlets I had. They inflict bleed if I'm using them in melee. They've got those spiky protrusions, but they're kind of wonky. They kind of malfunction a bit. Like they don't work so well if I'm trying to, I don't know, climb a ladder with them or use them for basic hand stuff. Or maybe they're stolen. Maybe I took them from somewhere. Or they're just bulky. They take 2 inventory spots.
Yeah,
I mean, you could trade all of these things off.
Absolutely. So like Arson's sword, right? It was a chained weapon.
Yep.
He can't lose it or be robbed of it, but it was also stolen. And there were people hunting him for that sword.
Right. Right. He was just a good thief. That's how he got it in the first place.
Yep. And then a note about upgrading your gear. You will receive hero points for completing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Customizations are added for 3 points as normal. Upgrading gear can only be done as smithy or artisan. Limitations cannot be added as part of an upgrade. So once it's created, if it already has a limitation, you can't add more limitations to it. Those have to exist at creation. All effects can only be applied to a single item once, no stacking.
Yep.
So you can't, for example, like the initial inclination, right, is when you get to a deadly weapon, right? You want to try to stack that to gain additional dice. No, it can only happen, you only happen one time.
Right? Just grab it once.
Yep. And then
the final piece there.
The final cost of a piece of gear can never be less than 1.
Yep.
So all that's important.
Yeah, that is it's so fun to go through and build all your stuff. Like the customization detail. As you can see, because we are just now getting to custom creating spells.
Right. And I'm going to say, right, if you're a spellcaster, you probably don't have any custom gear because you probably can't afford it. Or at least if you do, it's going to be very minimal.
Yep, you got to stick in a bathrobe, son. Because you want to spend your points right here.
Right. So similarly to creating items, it's the same in terms of spells. Note that spells, by the way, like here's a quick note on like casting for all spells, because you kind of need to know these tenets because they do impact your creation and build.
Yes.
So all spells are cast on command.
Mm-hmm.
They include 1 cast. Once a spell has no cast remaining, it is expended and must be studied again in rest and safety to cast again. Okay?
Yes.
How do you get additional casts of that spell? You have to add customization.
Yep, spend your points.
If you want to spam it later on, you've got to you've got to add that customization.
You've got to pay for it. But the really cool thing also in here is cast on command. That you don't roll to do it, you just do it.
Exactly. Yep.
If you have to roll to cast it, well, now you're getting into limitations, and you're probably going into a customization rabbit hole to work your spell up to where you want it.
Mm-hmm. Super good.
Yes, customization.
Infernal or unstable spells, you've got to have the magic skill ability or wizard savant. Mm-hmm. Note that magic skill can also be used as a defensive measure against enemy spells and effects in some cases. Schematics, by default, all spells require audible words and gestures with both hands.
Yes.
So that's a kind of a big deal when you're casting under duress, or, if you're like, if you've taken attrition, perhaps that could impact you in that way. Like if you decide, my lips are mangled.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's a problem. Right?
The first step to that is random attrition can be brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Duration. The default duration of a spell's effect is 1d6 phases.
Yep.
So think about that. If you rolled like a 1, like it only exists in that one phase.
Right? When you cast it. Poof.
Yep. and then it's gone. Right? So you got to keep that into account, stretching that spell across rounds, like beyond just those 5 phases into another round, is probably going to require some customization.
Yep. And again, that's for spells that need a duration. That's,
Correct.
Obviously like an instant effect, you don't need to worry about that. But if it's something that lasts longer, like if the spell is buffing somebody, like, hey, I'm giving you 3 defense for just this phase. Sorry, pal.
Yeah, so like Hankern and I tried to avoid these, I think Lizardmen maybe or something, by swimming through this river, and we had this water breathe spell. Well, guess what? I hadn't buffed it up very much, so it didn't even make it to the end of the round before we were potentially, so that sort of thing, like something with duration like water breathe, like you're gonna have to add that customization if you want it to extend beyond those 5 phases into subsequent rounds.
Yep. Indeed.
The effect output of a spell is 1d6. That's either damage or whatever. Like whatever if it has an effect, it's always just 1d6, but again, you can upgrade it with customization.
Yeah.
All spells require touch. That is the default. Default is touch.
Yes.
However, if you want to make it a ranged effect or an area effect, you have to add that customization to the spell.
Yep. Spend those points.
In the default state, your basic spell is going to affect a single target. But again, if you want it to affect multiple targets or an area, you've got to customize it.
Yep.
Okay.
And flat out, that's all your basics there. You get 1 cast out of it base. It's going to be D6 phases long. It's going to be a base damage D6 if it needs to happen. It's going to require touch. It's going to require both hands and speech. And these are just the basic spells.
Yep. And in case you're not super creative and you just want to buy some basic spells to get you going, like you don't want to put in all this work to customize stuff, you can literally just buy some of these basic spells and have them ready to go.
Right. And upgrade from there.
Yep. Right. Yeah, exactly. Or in terms of like creation, you're just like, I really want to do a fire blast, but I want to do a custom one. You can buy fire blast with 3 points.
Yep.
Okay. Explosive fire from the caster's hands, but then you want to make it an area effect. So then you can customize it further from there and modify it.
Indeed.
So hopefully by now you're sort of seeing, right, the power of Crown and Skull and how you can completely make your character to fit your vision. Yep. Right? Like if you want an ice spell, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to buy Fire Blast, but I'm going to call it Ice Blast for 3 points.
It's going to do cold and frost instead.
Exactly. And then I'm going to customize it from there to make it an area effect. Or I'm going to customize it from there to make it more deadly and add another damage die.
Yep. If you're playing a template, this is the exact page it comes and tells you to choose your basic spells from.
Yep.
Cleric said choose 3 basic. This is where he takes them from. Same with the Sage. Their choice of, I think they get a choice of 2 basic spells. These are your spots. And again, upgrade them later.
Perfect.
Indeed.
Perfect. All right.
Heck yeah.
So, just like equipment, spells also have the ability to have these bonus effects or limitations.
Yep.
Note, you have to be in a safe place to customize your spells. You can't do it in the field unless you're in a place of rest or safety. No single effect can be stacked more than 3 times total.
Yep, for magic.
Yes. For magic. So there is some stacking.
Yep.
And so what spell effects do you have? There are all kinds of different groups, but accuracy, adapt, additional cast, add a cast to the spell, analyze, animate, area, banish, blast, clairvoyance. Some of these things may not apply to every spell you're creating.
Right, exactly.
Right? But all these cool options. And what I love about Crown and Skull is that this literally is a spell-making toolkit.
Yeah.
For just about anything you could dream up. All the different types of effects you could dream up, they're all here that you can buy and purchase and add and modify and create.
Yeah, I created the shadow jump spell where I could either myself or another target, I could jump them to any place within, what did I have, up to 60 feet,
Yep.
as long as I put them in a shadow.
Yep.
And they got a bonus of 2d6 to their next roll.
Yeah.
They got like a bonus on their next action, as well as teleported to a shadow and hidden. So I mean, it was just awesome. Like, it was great for like sending a thief to go be sneaky.
Yeah. So probably in terms of
Translated.
those, you probably had the ranged
Yep.
customization there for 3 points, and then you probably
Yep.
had that transport
Yep.
customization for 3 points.
Range, transport. Man, there were so many. I think it also had, I don't remember what it's called now, but it would have been like a boost or something
Mm-hmm.
was added in there, as well as like a hidden. I don't remember, like, because there's it was a couple iterations. Gosh, back when that
Right.
was made.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
yeah, like it had a couple things, and then it had a bunch of limitations. It was roll the cast. It was requires shadows.
uh-huh.
Um, like it was loaded up with some stuff so that
Right. But
it all balanced through to be able to create it.
right. So note that might have had in terms of spell effects, that might have been 12 points. It might have required 12 points to create that one spell minimum, maybe even more.
Oh yeah,
But then Joe offset that with some of these spell limitations.
yep.
So, you know, that
And I was also a savant at that
mhm.
time. It was like, I'm pretty sure that stayed the same. But yeah, it was basically like, it was cheaper for me to buy spells
Mhm.
with the previous one.
Yep. But note some of these awesome limitations. Um, it might cost an attrition to
That's that.
cast. That's crazy.
Mhm.
That's a crazy limitation. Or it
Oh
costs
yeah,
materials to cast. Or it's linked to a physical object. So sometimes you can do that. You know, you could add a spell to a wand or a
right.
staff or a
Or a
dagger
ring.
or a ring, right? But then if that object is lost, the spell is lost.
Oh yeah, gone.
Crazy. Or must be sustained, like you have to like stay in your trance to
Yep.
keep it active, or it's painful, or it's a ritual, or it takes 2 phases to successfully cast. Like there are all kinds of really cool limitations that you can put on
Right.
spells.
Heck
Um,
yeah.
Sometimes magic can be unstable or infernal. Here are different pieces if they're stable, unstable, or infernal type magics. Note, by the way, if you have those skills that offset these, then you can control some of those spells better. But again, you got to pay the
Yep.
points, folks. Hopefully, you're also seeing now in terms of Crown and Skull the different cool rabbit holes you can go down in terms of character creation and spending and building and customizing and making the character you want to make.
And
It's
the hidden synergies.
uh
They're
huh.
like as you read through, you'll start to see things where it's like, hey, those rabbit holes do connect over here, and you start seeing the warren of little like things that are all like joined and attached and related to each other.
Yeah, and I really think, too, when Hankern was first developing some of the magic rules for Index Card RPG, like I think really in general, this was the system I think maybe he hoped to create. Like this really is the awesome sort of magic toolkit to make magic sort of cool and dream up exactly what you want to make.
Yeah, if you're a spellhead, if you are like that, if you are that wizard player and you love all that depth and detail and richness of how your magic system works, this is the one right here. Like, this is the one that is gonna like, it's gonna give you all of those little morsels of spell creation and customization, like the depth and detail of a wizard to become your Gandalf, or if you're more the Elminster or some such. These are your deals. Like, you can get rich and deep with this. You
Yeah.
can soak in the spell section.
We've already talked about acquiring new spells. We've talked about safety or finding an elder wizard or mentor, spell storage in a scroll or ring or amulet. We've talked about
Hmm.
this sort of Gaia theory that the land itself holds the magic. Like if you have a world with ley
Yes.
lines or, like
Hmm.
teacher stones or whatever, all those sorts of things are
Right.
there. This does talk about some constraints on magic, about people hating magic or drawing unwanted attention or vulnerability without magic or,
Hmm.
complexity of play, that sort of thing. So there are some notes to help you there. Here we get into companions. So very simply, 3-point companions, 5-point companions, and 12-point companions. Lady Thistledown was a 5-point companion. So
Yep.
as a medium companion, a 5-point companion, she had a D6 attack, 2 skills at value 9, and 9 defense.
Yep.
Right?
And remember that D6 attacks, because it's straight to damage. You're not rolling to hit.
Correct.
She's just hitting. But then
Correct.
Lady Thistledown was also a badass.
Right. So she could also attack, she could retrieve, she could track or stand watch or whatever some of her abilities were, or report, that kind of stuff. I wanted her to be able to pick up items. I could have upgraded her to carry things, all those sorts of cool things.
Yep. She did have a scout ability as well. She would go up and circle outdoors and give out a specific cry if there's something that looked out of place.
Yep. When I built her,
awesome.
I instantly built her as deadly, so she had that extra damage die, which made her super
combatant.
good. Yep.
She knew how to strike.
Yeah, so rather than building a cool bow, right, I had a cool bird.
Yeah.
Note that, companions can also have limitations, like they frighten easy, or they're trophy, or they're feral, or impulsive, or clumsy. I don't think I built her with any limitations, but...
No, that bird was flawless.
Yep, but they exist. Like, you could get points back in terms of your build by adding a limitation.
Right.
And that includes all the cool, customizations in terms of, building. So we've covered equipment, spells, companions. Note you can pick a lineage. We talked about that. So either you're a humankind, you're an elven folk.
Yep.
You could be a stout folk. You could be a proud foot.
And you might also notice there's no mechanical advantage or disadvantage to choosing any of these. Like, it loops back into what is the character you're playing. Like, who is that badass that you're envisioning?
Yep, exactly.
And this is where they come from. Like, this is like that meat. This is like the canvas you're painting your character onto. And
you could be a frogkin. So
ribbit.
in the lore, in the world of Crown and Skull, frogkin play a very central play a very central role in terms of Crown and Skull. So they're there for you. And then we have this idea, this last origin method, which is discovery. Right? So that's sort of the amnesia. Like, you start with amnesia and, little to no equipment. Right? And so it requires a little bit of lift, but you can do, sort of this discovery play. Like, what is your opener? Your location, your condition? Are you under any time pressure? One little memory, right? Stuff lying around. Is there other gear there? So, sometimes I have this sort of vision of Bell Greenbag sort of waking up in this camp alone, like all of his companions have been killed, but because, he was a halfling or a proudfoot, he was sort of, he looked like a rock covered over by his cape, and he wakes up, like, where is everyone? Right? And, next thing you know, like, oh, there's here a few things, but then I'm beset by goblins and, have to make an escape. Like, you could do that discovery play method here.
Yeah.
To kind of start. That, by the way, in terms of like a DMs, this would be a great way to start a whole party, even.
Yeah. You just new to Crown and Skull? Cool. Give everybody their D20, give them a blank sheet of paper. Boom. Start with one of those like key things, like, you wake up in the hold of a sinking ship, or you wake up prisoners of Moloch, because love it. It's a great intro. But you wake up in a cage and you watch them haul somebody off, literally a body or a person, and they go screaming their death as they're pitched off into the blackness, and they turn around and come back for you. You don't even have to have a character at this point.
Yeah,
just jump in and play and figure it out as you go.
Right. And then you kind of find your skills through like these memories. Right. Yeah. So like in Total Recall, if you're Quaid, you're just like, whoa, I know Kung Fu. Like,
right.
Like, I didn't know I could do that. I can like strip weapons off of people. Whoa, I had no clue. I was this cool. So you can build your character through a discovery way that way.
Exactly.
Really awesome. So all that part is in there. How do you gain more hero points? You got to do it with deeds. Here are some suggestions of primary moments for DMs. So completing a session with Flair, executing a legendary pivotal action, or returning, to goodly folk who are excited to see you back.
Killing a crabtopus,
Yeah.
or at least getting the ringing stone from a crabtopus.
Yeah, that's kind of a legendary action, right?
Oh yeah, you made it away and didn't die.
Mm-hmm. Yep. These milestone moments like closure, renown, all that sort of stuff. So all that's included.
Yes.
3 deeds, 5 deeds, 10 deeds or so.
Right.
Like,
how well known are you?
Yep.
Your deeds will tell you. Your deeds will help influence that.
Do you get a title? Like, what does that look like?
Right.
Super good. And then this
Ib Goggins. Why, even out in Slimshire, we've heard of Ib Goggins.
And then this whole idea of, do you choose the crown or skull?
Yes.
And if
at
you have earned,
point, they are going to ask.
Yeah, if you have earned 25 or more hero points, not at creation, but during play, then you're ready to make a choice, crown or skull.
And you must make a choice.
Yeah, and mechanically, it allows you to basically make a choice.
Yeah.
And so if you choose the crown, you gain 6 hero points. You can choose a special crown skill at no cost, starting at a 9. You can choose one cool piece of crown equipment at no cost. You get the crown sworn flaw immediately.
And this happens when you get the choice, when the choice must be made. This all happens immediately. You gain these things.
And you gain a ring of the anvil's light. Okay? So really cool. And then if you choose the skull, it's very similar. 9 hero points, 1 special skull skill at no cost, 1 special skull equipment at no cost. You have the Ronin flaw, and you gain the ring of the skull. So all that's
now,
there.
This isn't good or evil. These are just different ways of, I guess, going about the world. Choosing the crown or the skull. It's not necessarily saying that you are vile and evil. I mean, people who have chosen either path can still be running along. A crown can be running along with 2 skulls if they've all made those choices.
I think the distinction is this is not an alignment system.
Yes.
It's just a differentiation system.
Yes, exactly. Yep. But if you choose neither, both sides will hate you. Both sides will hunt you down. Like, I'm not even, it says something to that effect.
Yep.
Like, so you have to make a choice. Those who do not are shunned by all.
So all that's there. Here's the list of the crown skulls. There's some super cool stuff that you can choose from. Here's the list of the crown equipment.
Mind you, these are only available to people who chose crown.
Yep, right, exactly. So there's some sort of like some fun, pieces, right? Like you have a special silver shield, or you have the sun amulet, or this plumed helmet. Here are the skull skills. They're all laid out for you. The skull equipment, that's all laid out for you. Some of this more like Ronin type stuff, like a knighthood, a scythe, like that sort of thing. And then here in this player's document, here are some list of heroes of the realm, some people who are already out there, where they're located, their reputation, and then potentially like some quests that they could give players to start out. So Saint Castigear, he's there. Green Tooth, super cool. Elenia the Redwoods, Raka Galmorn, Lord Pickens, Mayor of Slimshire. What? Zippler's Ghost, High Princess Kalia, Keeper of the Dragon Tooth, awesome. Iron King Throm, Lord of Stonemark, Sir Jormund Osregard, Grand Champion of Finn, awesome.
Oh yeah.
Long Shadow, Nails.
Howdy, partner.
the Toad King, High Lord Krokakame.
Yes, Pikeborn, Emperor and Exeter.
Yep. Here's Cugbang, who's a really nice sort of Easter egg throw out to Ogbang, a member of our forums. Really great, kind of nice piece there. Queen Hinla of Harnmore, Caligos the World Drinker, like ooh.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yep. Hasgar the Dead, like super cool.
Yeah.
Infamous,
Infamous villains.
yep, Obleth, Dark Lord Royce of Blood Manor, who is sort of central in our council campaign.
Yep. The avarice of blood.
Yeah, really great. And then orders, guilds, and trusts. The House of Heron, Ruin's Children, the Blood Drinkers, the disciples of Lord Royce. Like we dealt with them, Joe, in your campaign. Ordo Viator of the Nomads Guild.
Right.
Udin's Hammer, really cool. The Ring of Leaves, like really kind of cool stuff. The Riders
Right?
Guild,
All of those thematic things that fill in and let the world breathe.
yep. The Holy Order, all those things are there. And then finally, in terms of this free player's guide, here is a primer for enemies and running the game. So if you're looking for the core loops in terms of the mechanics, like here they are. Like basic enemies have 5 stats: hit point, attack, defense, phase, and their tactics. This tactics roll is super cool. I think it was at Jeff Con last year in November. Xander and Hank and I sat down and we developed this sort of tactics system together. In terms of like 1 for your enemies, like almost nothing happens. It's like either a move or a displace or a target change or a regroup. 2 to 5 is always the enemy's common attack. And then if it's a 6, the enemy rolls some sort of area effect attack.
And they are brilliant.
Yeah, and it's brutal and brilliant and all just a really simple kind of way for DMs to run enemies. And make them happen.
And I made my own tactics dice. I had a bunch of black D6s that all had white pips. I just colored in some of the black, or colored in with a black marker so that only a 1 and a 6 are shown. And that's all I was using. It's like if I rolled and it was a blank on the die, I knew it was my 2 to 5.
Yep.
So like those 1s and 6s popped out easy, and I knew exactly at a quick glance exactly what tactics enemies were using.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's so wonderfully easy.
But here's a 1 page. This is the sort of stuff, right, that you would maybe put inside of a DM screen, or you would have handy right there when you're new to kind of running the game to get you familiar as a DM.
Back on that page real quick is one of the most, down at the bottom there, move to engage. Rolling the tactics dice, say it's right at the beginning of a fight. You don't want to roll a D6 and be like, oh, he's doing an area of, an AoE attack. I rolled a 6, but he's nowhere near the players. Like, skip that part. It's like it says down there, before you get into the tactics rolls, move to engage should be one of the first things.
Yeah, right. So don't feel like as DM you're bound to that tactics roll. It's just there as a tool, right? Like you don't have to be bound by it all the time. Like enemies you could just run your enemies like you would normally in a D&D session, right? Have them move in, have them make an attack, have them retreat. Or you're like, no, you know what? I want to leave this up to the dice. Like I'm going to let the tactics decide, does this AoE trigger? Or is it just a common attack, or do they move to displace or change targets? That kind of stuff.
Right.
Here's an included skeleton. So the player's
the skeleton
guide
that I was referring to previously.
Yep, here's a basic enemy for you to get you started. So if you
1 tactics.
You've seen our other video on Tomb of the Skeleton King, right? Like you could instantly run this using Crown and Skull. Skeletons.
There's your Skeleton King right there, the elite.
The Skeleton Elite, and there you are.
Right. So real quick, let's talk about just that thing. Just a little hail back to the bit about phases.
Yeah.
That Skeleton Elite goes in phase 4, 3 tactics. So on phase 4, 3 dice are rolling, those tactics dice, and it tells you right here your displacement tactic. If you roll a 1, they stumble about, seek a new target. 2 to 5. Basic weapon, destroy attrition. Tactic 6 is hitting everybody close to him. 3 with destroy attrition.
But note it's destroy attrition. That when the Skeleton King hits, he destroys an item.
Yeah, destroy attrition. It destroys an item and does a skill attrition as well.
Correct.
1 piece of gear destroyed completely and a skill gone.
Right.
So on phase 4, he's doing 3 things. What if the GM rolls 3 6s?
Yeah.
Your whole party's dead.
Yeah, I mean, he cleaves.
Like the danger
crazy.
is just that quick.
Yeah.
So this is where like the thought on how to approach these tactics go in, because regular skeleton is just doing one thing. Yeah, they're all basic attritions. It's not that scary. You get bigger, it's really scary.
Mm-hmm. Note though, by the way,
Man,
about the traditional skeleton and how basic it is. Like
Mhm.
it just goes in phase 3. It does one tactic. It does
Yep.
one thing, and it just does basic attrition as its
Yeah.
normal attack.
It's
Right?
got 10 hit points. Attack and defense are 3, so it's only a 3 penalty no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So which is plain and quick and easy, kind of a logie.
Yep. Just remember, enemies do have traditional hit points, so players are still rolling damage like they normally would. That's one of the basic rolls that we covered, but just to reinforce that. But players face that attrition system. And it can be anywhere from basic all the way up to destroy, and some of those horrible, horrible versions that can really jam you up. And then I think we just leave with the intrepid words of Ingrid Bernal, which is no matter how far flung our adventures, how high the plunder stacked, our greatest treasure was each other. And so remember, this is all about fun at the table.
Yes.
But I think players will really get sort of stuck into character creation and then playing this sort of fast-paced game.
Yes.
That really makes it awesome. All right.
Yep. So yeah, definitely www.runehammer.online. Go and download your free player's guide and start checking this thing out. Don't forget to sign up to get notified when you can pre-order the lovely tome that is going to be coming. You can see what's in the table of contents of this book that is almost completed already. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, so man, it's been super exciting to be able to share this with you today. We absolutely love Crown and Skull. It's been a labor of love, I know, for old Hankering. We had a ton of fun in terms of the early playtest sessions, playing it and trying it out, and helping shape kind of the version that it is now. Hopefully, some of those examples will helpful for you in terms of some of our early playtests. And man, if you've stuck around this long,
right,
we're super grateful.
Indeed, we appreciate it much.
Hey, and by the way, folks, I did want to point out, first of all, thanks for sticking with us through all that.
Yes.
Yeah, that deep dive into the Crown and Skull Player's Guide. Obviously, you can see there's a ton of jam-packed detail in there. We're super excited, though, about the full volume tome that's to come out. And if you would like more information about Crown and Skull, old Hankard himself over on the Runehammer channel has a ton of cool videos up about it. First of all, he's got some sort of the teaser trailer, the introductory videos. Please go check those out. They're super cool. They really highlight all the unique aspects of Crown and Skull in terms of like no player hit points, this awesome attrition system, the player facing rolls, like there are no rolls to hit. All those sort of things that make it unique, this really complex character creation system that can be super fun, or just grab a template and go. This awesome world that he's built in terms of the North Holds. Really epic stuff that was all generated through play. For more about that, please go check out his videos. There'll be links in the description. But Joe?
Yeah, I guess in the meantime, take our hero coin and always roll ultimate.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, guys.